Hey, good morning, everyone. Okay, so next in line, we are having approval process, which is again a kind of important business automation process. Usually, approval process is followed for almost every CRM project. Because I've seen this, out of 10, if I compare, if I have worked with 10 projects, so I've seen this with almost when maybe 7 to 8. So almost 70 to 80% of the CRM project, they usually have this approval process. I'm going to give you a few examples, few live examples for this as well. But let's first have a discussion onto this. See, what does it means by an approval process? Now, see, usually I can give you a simple example also. Let me start with that only. And then, in actual real world, how we generally use it, that is also we are going to have a discussion on this. See, let me take one simple example, so that every one of us could understand in a simple word what is an approval process and what is the role of an approval process in particularly in a CRM. See, let's consider that you go to a bank and you wanted to apply for a loan over there. I mean, you're having certain planned expenses. Maybe you are constructing your home, you're doing something, or maybe it's due to a certain need, certain urgency of that money. So you wanted to take a loan from the bank where your account is over there. So you go to the bank, you describe the manager that you're having a requirement of this much of the funding, this much of the. So let's say you ask him for 50 lakhs, that I'm trying to rebuild my house, I'm trying to renovate something, or maybe I'm doing I just purchased a land and I wanted to construct my house over there, my home over there. So I wanted you to approve me a loan of 50 lakhs. And then he would obviously in India, what happens is, like, you first of all would submit all of those documents. They whenever you go to a bank and you apply for a loan, they would ask you so many things, especially when it's a nationalized bank. And it would ask you so many things, so many documents you have to submit. They would keep it under processings and everything. And let's say that you already have submitted all of them, and then finally they I mean, the bank manager would say to you that, yeah, I mean, you seems to be a very genuine person, and we have seen your track record is very neat and clean. Your CIBIL score particularly is good, and we could definitely give you I mean, the loan what you're asking for. But then the case is like, because you're asking me an amount which is 50 lakh. So I can approve up to 30 lakh. I mean, on my level, I can approve up to 30 lakh. So do you want that amount, or you wanted a bigger amount? So you say to him, no, 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 I come with all estimations in my mind, and I'm in need of that much amount only. I wanted you to fund me at least 50 lakh. Then manager would reply you, all right, see, because see, in my case, I have a limit that if I approve any loan case, I can do it maximum on 30 lakh. So I'll do one thing. I'll submit your case for my senior manager, maybe the general manager, branch manager, whatever the position they are having. I also have one manager. I also have one superior authority above me. So what I'm going to do would be like, I'll submit your case for my manager for the approvals. I mean, let me try to get the approval from my senior authority. I'll discuss your case with them. I'll discuss that you're having a good track record, and you're having good repayment options. We can see that you are a highly salaried employee, and you can easily repay this much of the amount. So I'm sure that he'll also going to, approve your case, but you have to wait for certain time. Till the time, I mean, I'll submit your case for the approval. So this was just one example where I wanted you to understand that approval process is usually with almost every organization. This was one of the example with the financial organization, with the bank. Or let's say that you're an employee, you are an employee of an organization, an IT organization. You wanted to go on a leave, particularly for maybe like you're going a vacation, and you're going you're visiting some abroad countries. So one second. All right. So let's say you're applying for a vacation, but for a very long time, maybe like 1 month. And then you put up an application to your manager that I'm going, maybe I'm going like, I'm going for a foreign tour. It's a multiple, countries that I'm visiting. And that's the reason, I wanted to apply for a leave for almost like 30 to 40 days. A manager would say to you that, see, if you go on vacation, if it was like matter of maybe like 1 week, so that was in my hand, I can approve that. But now because you're saying that you're almost going for 1 month or maybe 1.5 months, I also required to get the approvals from the senior management. So I'll do one thing. I'll submit your case for approval. All right. And I'll try to fetch it out. I'll try to get the decision in, on your side. But please give me some time because I also require to take the approvals from my managers. Right. So this is very common. This is very common that almost in every organization, there is certain matter of interest which requires to be get approved by somebody as an authority. All right. So now when we talk in terms of CRM, this is also. Let me try to give you some real-time examples for this, and then we are going to understand how to design everything, approval process and all. So for every organization, almost, for every CRM requirement, we usually design approval process. So that is the reason, you should understand this and you should have you should have a crystal clarity onto this concept, right? That is what is important. So what I'm going to do would be like, let me try to first of all take certain use cases so that you can explore this with some of the examples. All right, so we are having this like create an approval process for the account object. So if for example, if the account industry is banking, and if it is in active state, account is in active state. So for example, if the annual revenue is greater than or maybe less than 50,000, 5 lakh, whatever, so that should be submitted for one user, and for above 50 lakh, 5 lakh, it should be submitted to the user 2. Now, one difficulty what we are going to face over here would be like, we don't have user 1 and user 2. When I go to manage user, still we have not created any users, right? We have not created any users so far. So we are the only system admin, but I'll try to replicate the example so this is some example where, if the annual revenue, for example, is it's once 10, 100,000, 10,000 lakh, 10 lakh. All right. So if annual revenue, the value of annual revenue, maybe if it is below 50 lakh, this record should get submitted to user 1. If it is above 50 lakhs, so this record should get submitted to user 2. But unfortunately, right now we haven't created multiple users, and you will going to understand that, but in the topic called security. Right now that is not being done, but yes, I'll try to replicate either. You will definitely going to understand that. We are having only one system admin, one. So we probably would able to submit this to this user only, but yes, we can understand that from this as well. Now, what I'm going to do would be like, I'll first of all go to account object, and I'll try, how could, for example, if this is a record, all right, if this is a record, and if I try to submit this, if I try to submit this for the approval process, if I would try to submit this for the approval, how I'm going to know that what happens to this record, whether this record was being approved, it was being rejected. All right. So that is the reason, that is the reason I would require to do 2 adjustments. First of all, in the related list section, as you can see, contacts, opportunity, cases, files, notion, attachment, I have to bring one section over here called as approval history. So let me do first of all that, and I'm going to expanding the force.com. I'll go with edit layout. Now in this, I'm selecting related list. Now we have contact, opportunity, cases, files. I can remove files because that is not of use. And I'll bring one thing over here called as approval history. At the last of this list, I just added one related list called approval history. All right. And let me now try to quickly save it. Now you can see that we are having one related list section called as approval process. Now see, if this is a record, if this is a record, For example, this is one of the account record. And now if I submit this for the approval, so how I'm going to track what would happen to this record, whether this record has been submitted. For example, right now I'm user one. All right, I'm the user one who is submitting this record, to user number two. Maybe user number two is the manager. He's my manager. And I'm just an employee. And due to certain reasons, I'm submitting this for approval. I'm submitting this for approval to the manager. How could I submit this record to approval for them? For this, you have to first of all add this related list, approval history. And in the approval history, you will get this button, submit for the approval. So this is the way you can submit a record for manual approvals. I would be showing you how automatically we can do that. That was also a part of discussion. But right now, submit for the approval. All right. So I would submit this record for the approval to my manager. Now, what happens to this? I mean, whether he has approved, whether he has rejected. Whenever you submit a record for approval, there is only two actions, right? There's only two actions that second person could take. Either he can approve, either he can reject. This is the only two action. This is the only two action, right? I'll show you one. मेरे दिमाग में एक बात आई है, मैं एक night से ही मैं I'll try to show you one real-time example for this. ठीक है, चलो. So how we are going to track what happened to this record? For this reason, for the tracking, this is not compulsory. Just for the tracking, I'm actually creating one new pick list field inside account object. Inside account, I'm creating one pick list just to have that tracking. You're going to understand the purpose why I'm creating this. Don't worry. अभी फिलहाल बस समझते चलो. I'm creating a pick list menu. I'm creating a pick list with a name called approval status. Approval status. All right. And this I'm entering the value as like, approved. And the second as rejected. Just because I wanted to understand, I mean, when I submit a record for approval, what happens to that record? Whether that was being approved or that was being rejected by the manager or by the person to whom I have submitted this record for the approval. So after this, next. And I'm making it visible for every user, but in real time, we usually make the selection for which particular user we wanted this to get appear, and I'm lending it onto all of the layouts of account. And now if I can go back to this, let me try to find that field. Approval status. Now, as you can see over here, right? As you can see, approved and rejected. And let's say, I mean, abhi to automate hone ka, let's say this record was being submitted to somebody and he approved. So, in the approval process itself, I'm going to design an automation. If this record is being approved, iska value change like approved, so that you would understand, acha, this record has been approved. And let's say if we reject this, if that second person would reject, so inside this field, you're going to see that this record has been rejected. All right. So that is the reason, I created a field, a pick list field with these two options called approval status. Now, let me design the approval process. So what I'm going to do would be like, I'm going with setup menu. All right. And inside the setup menu, I would go to create. I would go to workflows and approval, and I'll go with approval process, right? And every one of you, please concentrate over here, just because this is something which is important. Go to approval process. Now, this is the first page. Whenever you design an approval process, this is the first page. All right, this is the first page. Now, from this first page, you first of all would require to select the object on which you wanted to design approval process. Because I wanted this approval process to get designed onto account. So out of the list of all of the objects, you can see all of the standard and the custom objects on which you can create approval, obviously. So they are being listed out over here. Author, book. These are the custom objects, by the way. I wanted this approval process to be created onto account. And so from the list of all these objects, I'm selecting account. As soon as you select the account, it would give you this interfaces. So create a new approval process or using a jump start wizard or using the standard. Using jump and using standard. There are two options. I would recommend go with the standard setup. Go with the standard setup. And why not with the jumpstart wizard? So let me first of all design this, and then I'll come back to this point, and I'll make you clarify the why not jumpstart or where to use the jumpstart. But right now, because you wanted these rules to be get created from the scratch itself, so use standard setup wizard, right? So whenever you wanted to create a new approval process, you have two options. You can create it from the jumpstart wizard. You can use the standard setup wizard. So I'll be going with the second option. I'm going with the standard setup. Now, give a name to the approval process. So I would be giving a name for example, account approval process or something else. Account, because I'm making it on annual revenue, so the name I'm designing account annual revenue approval process. This approval process which I'm designing is the condition which I'm going to impose, that is based on the annual revenue. I mean, who is going to approve, who is going to become the approver, it completely depends on the annual revenue. If it's below 50 lakh, so this person would going to approve that record. If it's above 50 lakhs, so maybe this person we're going to approve them, right? So it's all depend on annual revenue. And so I'm trying to give the name something related, that accounts annual revenue approval process. And you can, if you want, you can write something in the description. Otherwise, I usually skip that. Now, see, when you come to that was the second page, I think. Now, when you come to the third page, here you have to mention something called as the entry criteria. Now, what is this entry criteria? This is as good as a rule condition. Like we have seen this in the workflows. In the workflows, giving at least one rule condition was mandatory. When you come to the process builder, that time, although it's not mandatory, I mean, you can have a condition, you can design a condition using formula as well. Like, in the past example, yesterday's example, I've taken one formula over there. And there was one more option, no condition. All right. So if you wanted to fire an automation rule without checking for any condition, that was also possible in process builder, which is merely not with the workflows, because in the workflow, at least one rule condition must be over there. Now, similarly, here, I mean, before the approval process would be getting fired, do you wanted to check for anything? Do you wanted to check for anything? Yes. We have one thing. I mean, if you go with this, we are having two conditions. I'm not going to submit every record of account for approval. There are two conditions rather, as mentioned in the use case. If an account industry is banking and the active status is yes, for any account whose industry is banking and active status is yes, only those records needs to be get submitted for the approval, otherwise not. All right. So I would be, I would be checking for those conditions. How I'm going to check for those conditions? That industry should be banking and active status should be yes. So for that, you are going to use this interface. This interface would, would help you out to specify the entry criteria, the conditions that requires to be get checked in the entry itself. Before the record would getting submitted for the approval, before it would be getting submitted for the approvers. Okay, this is a record, you have to approve or you have to reject. So even before that, something requires to be get checked. And that how to check, this is the interface for this. So here again, you're having two options. You wanted to evaluate based on certain fields, you'll go with criteria. Or if you have a formula to be get evaluated, like yesterday we did it, is changed. That was one of the formula. So I don't have that condition right now. I am having conditions more specifically to the fields. I mean, industry is what? It's a field of account object. Active status is what? That's also a field. So my conditions are based on the field. So I'll go with the criteria, but right. And now let me go with this account industry. Where is industry? Account industry, if that equals to banking, that is my first condition. And if you wanted to alter this, you can put up or over here, but you have to go with this. And the active status should equals to yes. So if these two conditions would met for the record which is being submitted for approval, and then only go further with this, otherwise just stop. So these are the two conditions that's requires to be get checked. And then after giving the condition, I'm just writing the next. Now, what is this next app automated approval determined by? So see, sometimes what happens is like, I submit a record for approval. I submit a record for approval. Maybe to, for example, somebody like, let's say I submit this record to general manager, and due to certain reasons, I submit a record to general manager. But the general manager, he's actually on leave, maybe for next 1 month. So what is going to be happen for that? In that case, is this record will be kept pending? Actually, yes. But then we are having a provision that if somebody would not respond this, I have to design an automation for that, of course, a time-based automation. But yes, that could also be submitted to somebody else. So if you are having certain managers in the hierarchy by this is going to be defined by the role hierarchy. Now, what is a role hierarchy? You're going to that learn after security. You're going to learn that, but that could be submitted to somebody else also. So there is a provision. There is a provision that you could submit it to some another manager, or you can design your own custom hierarchy. If this person doesn't approve, then this must be this I could submit it to somebody else as well, right? So that is also a provision. That is also a provision that you could define somebody else for that, right? So that is the reason this is being used. All right, but right now I'm just keeping it simple, so I'm obviously not going to use that. And records editably option is what something, if you submit a record, for the approval, so what really happens is like, when you submit a record, records get logged. So ye kaise hota hai? I'm going to show you that right now. But record editability properties, if by default it's like administrator can only edit the record during the approval process and nobody else could that. Or if you wanted to assign it to somebody that this person should also can edit the record, then you'll go with that option. Otherwise, you usually keep it with the administrator. So you will going to see something that whenever you submit a record for approval, it is getting logged. So when it is getting logged, so during that time, can we edit? No, we cannot edit, but administrators can edit. Actually, we are the admin, so we can edit that. But usually what happens with this is like, apart from administrator, nobody else could edit that record. So that's a default option, keep it as it is. Now go with, actually, you don't have to do anything on that, but you just have to click on to next. Like, agar main next pe chala jaunga, to you're not going to understand what was the options that was on there. इसलिए I'm just trying to explain you everything. यहाँ कुछ करना नहीं है आपको basically, but you must have an understanding कि what this option is actually used for. All right, and the next. Now, do you have any specific email template if you have designed any such that whenever the record is getting approved and you are submitting a record for approval, one email should get fired? Actually, this is a process. In real time, we usually have. So if we have certain email template, that gives us that acknowledgement, so I'll have to use that. I can use that. I can use that. All right. So during when you submit a record for approval, one email is getting fired. So if you have any such specific email template, you can select it over here. If you don't have it, just skip that and go to the next. Now, so all right, so how on the approvals page, how many fields you wanted to display? So this just keep this in the mind. I'll show you. I'm going to take a screenshot for this. Owner must, all right, owner must be over there. Yeah, I'm selecting one more. Annual revenue and the active status. All right, so I would be selecting, see, account name, owner, annual revenue, active status. So what exactly is this approval page? All right, on the approval page, these 4 fields are going to be get displayed. So where is that approval page? You are going to see that. All right, right now, just take a screenshot of this. Or you can remember that there are 4 fields which I have selected: name, owner, annual revenue, and active. All right, so where exactly this is going to be displayed, you are going to see. Now, how many of them you wanted, you can obviously select it from here. Go to the next. From here you can have the options. I mean, to whom you wanted to specify the initial submitters. I mean, who can submit the record. So I am just keeping this for the owner, the one who creates the record. But otherwise, we are having multiple options from where we can select. For example, in the NIDEC, I have selected who exactly could submit a record. Not everyone over there was able to submit a record. If I'm having a specific set of users, those who can submit the record for approval, so I select this option, and then I'll add them. I mean, this is the user. This is the user who can submit the record for approval. All right. So when you specifically, for example, not I'm having like thousands of users, but not everyone has an ability to submit the record. If there is only a specific set of users, those who are allowed to submit the record, then you have to go with this option. Otherwise, if you go with like owner, I mean, the one who's actually the owner, he could submit the record. So you can go with this options, right? This is just about then who can submit the record for approval. All right. And then save it. So once everything has been booked, you will come to this page, and this would ask you, do you wanted to create an approval steps? Do you wanted to create an approval steps? You have to mention yes over there. Yes, I would have to. I mean, if you go, if you don't know what's an approval step and how to design, you can select it later, this option. But right now, I mean, because we have to plan for everything, so I'm going with yes, I wanted to create the approval steps right now. All right, so I'm going with this option and go. Now, now I'm going to give you 2 steps for this. Step number 1. Step number 1. Okay, step number 1, or maybe I could say that. Let me go with this. This I could mention that annual revenue less than 50 lakh. All right. So if this is my step, I mean, because see, we are having 2 different cases. When the annual revenue is less than 50 lakh, we have to submit it for a separate user. And similarly, when the annual revenue is greater than 50 lakh, we have to submit it to this case. This record needs to be get submitted to another user. Although we don't have user, I'm just trying to what to say, I'm just trying to simulate this, but otherwise we don't have user. In our case, what would happen, मैं एक ही user को दोनों submit करने वाला हूँ. Just to make you understand, I'm just trying to I'm trying to simulate this. Otherwise हमारे पास users ही नहीं है अभी, we haven't created any user. तो actually हम दोनों cases में एक ही user लेंगे, और वो भी हम खुद ही रहेंगे. मतलब we would be the one who submit the record, we would be the one who is going to approve or reject the record, because there's only one user right now, that is us. बस ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस. ठीक है, तो मैं यहाँ पे 2 अलग अलग केसेस बना रहा हूँ कि अगर इफ द रिकॉर्ड्स एनुअल रेवेन्यू इज लेस देन 50 lakh, I'll submit it to maybe like XYZ user. And second step would be like अगर annual revenue is greater than 50 lakh, I'll submit to somebody else. So that's the reason मैं यहाँ पे 2 steps डिजाइन कर रहा हूँ. सही. So if the annual revenue is less than 50 lakh, so this is my first step. If this is the case, so all records should enter? No, I have a specific criteria for that. What is that criteria? And that's the reason, see, I'm not going with this option. I'm going with this option. Okay, if the value of annual revenue, if it is less than what? Less than 50 lakh. So let me copy this. If it is less than 50 lakh. So all of those records, I mean, in this step, ये जो step मैंने अभी बनाई है, इसमें कौन से records आने चाहिए? तो इसमें क्या सारे records आने चाहिए? All records should enter? No. Only those account records where the annual revenue is less than 50 lakh. Only those should enter into this step. All right. So that's the condition. That is my condition. Now, let us submit to choose it manually, automatically assign. ठीक है. So I'll go with कि अगर ऐसा है, I mean, if the account annual revenue is less than 50 lakh, तो ये किसको जाना चाहिए? Who would be the person who is responsible to approve this? So we are having user 1. अब हमारे पास actually users नहीं है, we don't have users. तो यहाँ से हम users को select करते हैं, by the way. So this is only the user, which is actually हम ही है, खुद ही है. So I'm selecting this user. Let's consider this as user number 1. सेकेंड केस में फिर से मैं इसी को लेने वाला हूँ, लेकिन आप उसको यूजर नंबर 2 देख लेना. मैं रियल टाइम पे दिखाता हूँ पहले आपको वो, फिर उसके बाद आपको ज्यादा क्लैरिटी आएगी. बट अभी आपको एक ही यूजर है, तो दोनों केसेस में आपको एक ही यूजर सिलेक्ट करना है, बट फिर भी स्टेप 1 और स्टेप 2 क्या होती है वो आपको समझ में आना चाहिए. ऑलराइट, सो दिस वुड बी द यूजर. लेट्स कंसीडर दैट दिस इज यूजर नंबर 1. तो अगर कोई भी रिकॉर्ड अकाउंट का जहां पर एनुअल रेवेन्यू की वैल्यू जो है वो इफ इट इज लेस देन 50 लाख, so ये है वो यूजर who is responsible to approve that record. All right, and then save it. So that was my step number 1. That was my step number 1. ठीक है. अब ये जो एक्शन है अप्रूवल एक्शन एंड एवरीथिंग, आई विल डू दिस लेटर, यू नो, आई डू दिस लेटर. मैं आपको वो पेज पे लाके दिखाता हूँ. सो दैट वाज माय स्टेप नंबर 1. सी, सो अभी कैसा हो गया. सी, वी आर हैविंग, आई मीन दिस इज, अभी यहाँ पे और कुछ ऐड करने वाला हूं मैं, बट अभी आप फिर भी देखो इसको. प्रोसेस नेम है अकाउंट एनुअल रेवेन्यू. ये प्रोसेस, आई मीन द रिकॉर्ड्स व्हिच आर गेटिंग सबमिटेड, व्हेनेवर यू सबमिट एन अकाउंट रिकॉर्ड फॉर अप्रूवल, एक कंडीशन चेक होगी. अगर वो रिकॉर्ड का इंडस्ट्री इक्वल्स टू बैंकिंग है, और साथ ही साथ उसी के साथ active status should equals to yes if both of this condition would match, if both of them would satisfy, if both of them is true. The industry value is banking, active status is yes. If both of this condition, even if a single condition would fail, record is not going to be get submitted for the approval. So this condition requires to be get satisfied. That is what it is called as entry criteria. If both of the condition would satisfy, the records enters into approval. Now, after entering into approval, one thing is going to be get checked. As soon as the record get initially submit, see यहाँ पे लिख के आया ना record lock, यहाँ एक action है अपने आप एक action. I'll do one more thing. चलो मैं एक काम और करता हूँ आपको, आपके simplicity के, so that you would have that approval status में. What I'm going. I add one more option. Approval status, ये जो मैंने pick list बनाई ना, I'll add one more option. यहाँ पे एक option और add करता हूँ मैं, जिसका नाम रहेगा pending. Status would be pending or in progress. Let me edit this. Pending नहीं, इसको मैं in progress कर देता हूँ. In process, something like this. In process. All right. There's one more option. वो जो अप्रूव मैंने जो पिक लिस्ट बनाई है उसमें एक ऑप्शन और ऐड कर दिया. उसका सिग्निफिकेंस क्या आपको समझ में आएगा. डोंट वरी. सो I'm going to add some certain conditions in initial approval. सब में ऐड करने वाला हूं मैं. तो अभी फिलहाल आप जो मैंने अभी तक जो बनाया उसको समराइज कर रहा हूँ. सो इनिशियल सबमिशन जैसे रिकॉर्ड सबमिट होता है, आई टोल्ड यू रिकॉर्ड लॉक्ड हो जाता है, यू कैन नॉट एडिट दैट, और ये मैं दिखाऊंगा आपको. सो दिस रिकॉर्ड गेट लॉक्ड. इसके अलावा डू यू वांटेड टू ऐड समथिंग? यस, ऑफ कोर्स. व्हाट इज दैट? तो आई मीन डू यू वांटेड टू ऐड सर्टिंग मोर? यस. तो यहाँ पे ऐड न्यू का एक बटन है, एंड यू कैन ऐड दिस मच ऑफ एक्शन. अगर आप इसको ध्यान से देखो, टास्क, ईमेल अलर्ट, फील्ड अपडेट, आउटबाउंड, ये कहां से कैसा दिख रहा है? कैन एनीवन ऑफ यू आंसर मी कि ये डू यू हैव सीन समथिंग सिमिलर टू दिस इन द पास्ट? टास्क, ईमेल अलर्ट, फील्ड अपडेट. इन द चैट यू कैन रिस्पॉन्ड टू मी. डू यू हैव सीन समथिंग सिमिलर इन द पास्ट? कहां देखने में मिला है आपको ये? यस, एनीवन ऑफ यू? और लेट मी गिव यू दिस कमांड, यू कैन अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ. 1 सेकेंड. हाँ चलो, आप अनम्यूट कर सकते हो अभी. ये ऐसा कुछ कहां देखा आपने? Process builder.
Workflows and
rules.
workflows.
This you have seen in workflows, guys. Workflow have only 4 type of actions: task, email alerts, field update, and outbound. So this interface, what you can see right now, where after the record has been submitted for approval, you can add actions. There are only 4 type of actions, as good as your workflows. All right. So workflow में जो 4 actions है वही यहाँ पर है. So what you wanted? I mean, when the record has been submitted for the approval, do you wanted to assign a task? Do you wanted to send an email? Do you wanted to update a field? You want to send an outbound? These are what? These are the options in the workflows. All right. So I wanted to, let's say, update a field. Update a field. I'm giving the name as update approval status. update approval status as in progress, right? So see, I am having a field inside account object. I'm having a field called as approval status. I would be updating that. So that's the reason I'm trying to give the name. Which field you wanted to approve? Now select that. Inside account, we are having a field called approval status. In the custom approval status, right? Now it would select because that's a pick list. What option you wanted? Above, current, a specific? Yes, specific. I would be selecting as in process. In process. Okay. And let me now save this. So what would happen now? Understand. Whenever a record would be getting submitted for approval, जैसे ही आप एक रिकॉर्ड, अभी तो मैनुअली और फिर कल मैं इस पे और बात करता हूँ ऑटोमेशन के थ्रू कैसे ऑटोमेटिकली सबमिट करना, बट राइट नाउ मैनुअली हो सकता है आज एग्जाम्पल पूरा ना कर पाए, कल करेंगे, कोई दिक्कत नहीं, बट इसको ग्रेजुअली ही पढ़ेंगे. सो वी सबमिट एंड रिकॉर्ड फॉर अप्रूवल. जैसे आप उसका अप्रूवल पे सबमिट करोगे, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल ये कंडीशन चेक होगी कि जो रिकॉर्ड अकाउंट का जो आप सबमिट कर रहे हो अप्रूवल के लिए, क्या उसका इंडस्ट्री बैंकिंग है, क्या उसका एक्टिव स्टेटस यस है. अगर ये दोनों कंडीशन सेटिस्फाई होती है तो ही बात आगे बढ़ेगी, अदरवाइज नहीं. अगर इसमें से एक या दोनों कंडीशन फेल होता है, इवन दो इफ यू हैव सबमिटेड दैट फॉर अप्रूवल, इट वुड एक्चुअली विल नॉट गो टू एनी अप्रूवर्स, वो किसी को नहीं जाएगा, इट वुड रिमेन ओवर देयर इटसेल्फ, वो अप्रूवल्स के लिए नहीं जाएगा. व्हाई? बिकॉज द कंडीशन इज नॉट मैचिंग. दैट्स द रीजन. दैट इज द सिग्निफिकेंस ऑफ योर एंट्री क्राइटेरिया. नाउ आफ्टर दैट, चलो हम ऐसा मान के चलते हैं कि लेट्स गो विद द पॉजिटिव टेस्टिंग, कि जिस रिकॉर्ड को हमने सबमिट किया है उसका इंडस्ट्री बैंकिंग है और साथ ही साथ उसका एक्टिव स्टेटस यस है. So both of the entry condition would satisfy, and so the record would be getting submitted for the approvals. Approval के लिए जा चुका है. तो when the record has been submitted, now we'll go to initial submission. अब जब रिकॉर्ड जा चुका है अप्रूवल के लिए, तो क्या होता है इसमें से रिकॉर्ड लॉग्ड. देखो ये ऑटोमेटिक है, इसको आप चेंज नहीं कर सकते. डू यू सी एनी एडिट और रिमूव ओवर हियर? क्या यहां पे आपको कुछ नजर आ रहा है? क्या यहां पे कुछ नजर आ रहा है? नहीं. So that's a default feature of Salesforce. So now if somebody would ask you, can you explain me the approval process? See, what are the things you have to explain? Point number one, you have to talk about entry criteria. Point number one, you have to talk about, whenever we design an approval process, we first of all would have to mention, we first of all would have to specify the entry criteria. And what is the significance of entry criteria? It would check. I mean, if you submit a record for the approval, we don't want it to be get submitted blindly. If we have a conditions that requires to be evaluated before the record is getting submitted, तो वो entry criteria में mention की जाती हैं. Whenever we talk about approval process, if you are demonstrating this to somebody, मतलब होता है, this is also happens. Whenever you create an approval process, and for example, now you have to give a demonstration, maybe for your clients. You see, based on the requirement, what you have given to me, I designed this. So, क्या आप उसको सारी steps बताओगे? No. What you are going to talk first would be the entry condition. See, based on the entry condition. Now, the second is the initial submission actions. Okay, when the record is getting submitted, what happens? So this is something a default feature of Salesforce. कि record lock हो जाता है. So any such record which has been submitted for approval, you cannot edit that. I mean, if I go to the account, for example, and let's say this is my record which I have submitted it for the approval. ठीक है? तो अभी अगर मैं, if I now go to edit this, I can edit that, right? वो आप edit ऐसे भी कर सकते हो, inline editing भी कर सकते हो, everything is allowed. But अगर ये record में, if I would submit this record for the approval, till the time the action has been taken, ये reject होता है, ये approved होता है, तब तक आप ये record edit नहीं कर पाओगे. That is what is a default feature. But because we are the system admin, तो मुझे I need to check for this. I think हम कर सकते हैं, because यहाँ मतलब मैं आपको live example दिखा के बता पाऊंगा, but जितना मेरा अंदाजा है, because हमने लॉगिन किया ट्रेनिंग बैच 208 से, और ये यूजर सिस्टम एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर है, और हमने ये भी देखा है कि एक डिफॉल्ट फंक्शनैलिटी ये भी होती है कि इवन द रिकॉर्ड इज गेटिंग लॉग्ड, सिस्टम एडमिन कैन एडिट दैट. तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि स्टिल इफ वी इवन इफ वी रिकॉर्ड सबमिट दैट रिकॉर्ड वी वेर बीइंग हम वी वेर बीइंग एबल टू वी वुड बी एबल टू एडिट दैट। सो वो मैं देखता हूँ अभी जब हम रिकॉर्ड सबमिट करेंगे। तो मैं दूसरा जो लाइव एग्जांपल लूंगा उसमें मैं सारी चीजें क्लैरिफाई करते चला जाऊंगा, सो डोंट वरी। अभी आप एक बाय एक एक स्टेप को समझो। आई एम नॉट इन अ हरी टू कंप्लीट दिस। 1 से 2 दिन 2 से 3 दिन लग जाएंगे, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं, बिकॉज दिस अंडर आई मीन दिस इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग। सो दैट इज व्हाट इज इनिशियल कंडीशन, दिस वुड कम ऑटोमेटिकली एवरी टाइम। ये आपने नहीं डिसाइड किया है। आपने क्या डिसाइड किया, मैं एक फील्ड अपडेट करना चाहता हूँ, वो आपका कस्टम एक्शन है। आपको ईमेल सेंड करना है, आप वो भी कर सकते हो। कोई टास्क देना है किसी यूजर को एट द टाइम ऑफ सबमिशन, दैट इज आल्सो यू कैन प्लान। So field update action is something that is my custom action. This is something a standard action, and that happens every time whenever you submit a record. That records get logged, and you lose that ability to edit that record because that is there inside the approval process. Till the time it is there in the approval, the record is getting logged. All right. चलो उसके अलावा मैंने एक चीज और डिसाइड किया कि as soon as that record would getting approval के लिए चला जाए, तो जैसे वो अप्रूवल के लिए जाता है, I wanted the status to become in process. So that is what is going to be happen. तो एक फील्ड अपडेट एक्शन मैंने लगा सो एक फील्ड अपडेट एक्शन हमने यहाँ पे लगाया है कि एक फील्ड है जिसका नाम है अप्रूवल स्टेट। उसका उसका जो ऑप्शन है वो इन प्रोसेस हो जाना चाहिए। तो जब भी आप किसी रिकॉर्ड को अप्रूवल पे भेजते हो तो उसका जो स्टेटस है वो इन प्रोसेस हो जाए। ये कस्टम है, ये कस्टम है, ठीक है। अब इसके बाद की स्टेप्स जो है हम लोग कल डिजाइन करते हैं। मैम देयर आर सो मेनी थिंग्स दैट रिक्वायर्स टू बी गेट। सो मैं ठीक है, I'll keep it as it is, और कल हम इसके ऊपर, ये अभी कंप्लीट नहीं हुआ, इसमें काफी सारी चीजें बची हैं, ठीक है। सो आज तो नहीं हो पाएगा, कल हम देखते हैं। और 4 मिनट है, मैं आज क्वेश्चंस भी नहीं लेता हूं आपको। लेट मी फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल फिनिश दिस एंड देन हम कल इस पे आगे बात करते हैं। I'll take your questions by tomorrow only. All right. Thank you so much for joining.